That's actually a good point. All right, welcome to the Military Minute. I'm Mike Jennings. Thanks for joining us here today. Topic for today's episode is tell me about yourself. Not asked in every interview, but when it is asked, it's always the first question. So why is that? What's the purpose for this? Well, a lot of times, especially military veterans coming off of active duty, give interviewers way more credit than what they deserve. They'll ultimately look at this and say that there's some formula for why they're asking for this and they're looking for certain things out of it. But the truth of the matter is that usually this question, tell me about yourself or walk me through your resume or something like that, is really just in their mind, it's a softball pitch. It's a great way to get things going with you, to hear you talk and just start giving you something that you're supposed to be comfortable with. It should be easy. That's what they're thinking. Let's just talk. How hard is it, after all, to just talk about yourself? Well, the truth of the matter is it's actually a little bit more complicated than that. Because when somebody says, tell me about yourself or walk me through your resume, this question is just fraught full of pitfalls inside of it. Because in the end, we have to remember, if we go back to the previous episode that we did on understanding the interviewer, the front end of every interviewing process is always about qualifying you in your ability to do the job and your interest in doing the job. We didn't really talk about that in that segment, but ultimately that's what it comes down to. That's how you're going to influence them. So before they decide that person or that organization is going to spend more time with you, they have to feel like that you're at least meeting the minimum qualifications of what they have and that you have enough interest in the position in order to continue this process. So when you get this question, tell me about yourself, what you have to make sure that you cover here is the things it is that are important to them in that process, not necessarily the things that are important to you. This is not a biography. This is not a time for you to be telling your personal story, though it does sound like that. Just like your resume isn't a bio. Your resume, when you put together your resume, you're putting together a sales document. It just kind of looks like a bio. And that's the same thing with this question. This question is not a bio of what you've done. This is a sales pitch. And I'll be honest in saying that I actually learned this concept when I sat on a municipal board a number of years ago, and we were in the process of doing an evaluation of engineering firms for a Main Street beautification project. And so what had happened was the municipality sent out a request for proposal to the engineering firms in the area. Of course, request for proposal, to put this in job search terms, that would be like running a job posting. Well, there's a lot more job seekers out there in the world than there are engineering firms. So when you do a request for proposal, you just send it to the engineering firms and say, hey, here's what it is that we need. We'd like to request from you a proposal to solve this problem. So we took the initial responses from this, we looked at those, and then we invited 3 engineering firms in to come see us. And when they came in, I thought it was so interesting that every single one of them did the exact same thing to start off. Each engineering firm effectively took the proposal that we had, and they didn't tell us everything about their firm. What they focused on was on the education, the qualifications or certifications that they had, and the project experience that they had that was directly related to what we had asked for. And that's all they focused on for the members of the team. So I realized that became a very important lesson to looking at this in the interview process. When you get to this point in the process where you are supposed to talk about your background, wherever it comes up, understand that you're setting up your bona fide qualifications for why you're a fit for the position. Now, military members can oftentimes say, well, I'm going into a job that's different from what I did on active duty. And we see this frequently. That's the essence of the military transition. You're taking relatable skills that you have from the military that will fit into the job that you're looking for. So for example, quite frankly, most of the positions that military people go into, employers are looking for your ability to be developed in the position, which means a good part of what they're interested in you for is your ability to take training that they're going to give you and apply it in the environment where they want you to work. So when you talk about your military experience, your ability to absorb training and apply it in the real world on what you have been taught to do is a big part of that. The other part of that is that they're interested in your ability to take that training and the experience where you have applied it and then extend that into something else. So again, in some of our business units here, we do a lot of work with people who do maintenance. So they want to understand the process that you went through, all of the training that you got in the military to learn your maintenance skill. Then how did you do with that when you got out into the fleet or out into the force? And then what were the times that you were called upon to go fix a piece of equipment or a machine that you had no training or experience on? How were you able to use that knowledge? Same kind of thing. We see this with officers as well. Your ability to learn particular types of information, your ability to lead that people to accomplish goals and understand that environment, your ability to use a critical mind to analyze those things. Those are those functionally relatable skills that they're interested in hearing in this part of this. But it's just so important to remember to get this going and get this going on the right track. You need to have taken some time to understand what the employer is looking for in terms of setting up bona fide qualifications to this and how your background answers those things. The last point in all of this is that when you're telling this story, you've got to have enthusiasm. This cannot be a boring story, because telling a boring story about yourself is going to tell them that you're going to be boring for the entire time that you work with them. If you can't get excited about your story and what you have been through, you can't expect them to be excited about your story and how it connects with them. So remember, be ready to do this first. 2, make sure that you cover the details that cover your qualifications completely. Don't skip over things that matter in your training, and some of the things you take for granted are there. And 3rd is make sure you tell this story with energy, and you'll be off to a great start in your interview. Thanks for joining us. If you want to learn more about this, check out my new book, On Target, On Time, Precision Guidance for the Military to Civilian Transition. But until then, we'll see you next time. I'm Mike Jennings.
Thanks for joining the Military Minute. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts so you're notified when a new episode is released. Is there a topic or conversation you want discussed here on the show? Send it to me at scott.cunningham@militaryminute.us.